All right, how's it going, my magnificent sons of bitches? And I wanted to go ahead and do this video. I wanted to make sure I got it right before the Florida State game so I can go ahead and tag Florida State on this right here, NCAA playoff games and whatnot. As the big bowls start tomorrow, um, with Florida State and Georgia. And, one of the reasons why I don't really watch college football, really, I don't watch football at all anymore. It's not the same game that I'm used to, watching whenever, I was younger and, used to watch the Cowboys and then the Packers and then the 49ers, and I cheered against them all. I'd always root for Texas and whatnot. And, now it's just pretty much all scripted diatribe bullshit. In fact, it's probably worse than the WWE as far as scripting. You even have your little kayfabe storylines come in where such and such player is hurt and this team. So, the funny part about this year, it's a little bit different because at least, the wrestling fans understand this shit's scripted. You go over there to a wrestling fan, Seth Rollins is going to end up winning. Roman Reigns is going to end up beating, whoever it is, Alberto Del Rio or whatever it is that he's facing. They understand that their guy's going to win, and, they're not doing, I guess there are some guys that do the fantasy booking. For the most part, though, wrestling fans get the fact that my sport's scripted. It's set up, and, granted that this affects, well, not really, it doesn't really affect because, people have known that wrestling was scripted for years, but, with the lack of, the entertainment, and it's getting better, WWE is getting better at least, with the, getting at least a little bit more interesting and a little bit more entertaining, where you can't predict. It is getting better, but for the most part, whenever the quality started to go down, the personalities weren't so bombastic, everything started to get standard, same old repetition. Well, we all know what happened with the YWC. We all know what happened with the interest in wrestling. The interest went straight down. For the most part, that's what happened to a lot of your channels too, because your channels was dependent on professional wrestling, for people to be interested in wrestling, to go to your channel, to watch your channel, and to watch wrestling. Unfortunately, it doesn't work quite the same way whenever we're talking about sports. So what do we have going on? I think that Patrick Bet-David made a pretty good case where he was comparing the NFL to the NBA and saying that the NBA, because they were running with the, Washington, the Golden State Warriors, and they were pushing the Golden State Warriors. They were pushing LeBron James. LeBron James was John Cena, and they had this big rivalry going on, but it wasn't anything like the LA Lakers and the Boston Celtics rivalry. You know what I'm saying? That was believable. People believed that Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were the two top tiers, and the teams around them were just pretty much awesome. It was a competitive sport. It could go either way. There's no competition, though. They're just running up and down the court shooting three-pointers. Same thing with the NFL. They're just going ahead, throwing lobs to wide open wide receivers. They're not even having any resistance. So we come on to college football. Now they're paying the players. You understand? And so the reason why I'm making this video is because why would I watch your sport if I already know it's scripted? If I already know how these games are going to turn out? You have Georgia facing Florida, and Florida got screwed out of being in the playoffs, which by all means, it doesn't matter what anybody says. You can go listen to Stephen A. Smith. You better not put Alabama. Alabama needs to be in there. Oh, they beat Georgia and all this other bullshit that he's going to sit there with the little potato head looking self and sit there and yap on syndicated TV. Florida State absolutely deserved that spot. They won all their games. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter if you want to sit there and pretend like Alabama is the best team. Guess what? It doesn't matter. It's not up for debate. You're just wrong. Period. End of story. Georgia didn't belong in there neither because Georgia didn't win their title game. And there's a few people over there that says that Georgia should be in there. It should be Alabama and Georgia, and there's the case. I can't take you seriously. I can't watch your shit on ESPN. I cannot watch these games because, well, I already know that you got to justify Alabama making that playoff spot. And you've got to justify taking Florida State out. So I'm already looking at your little SEC games, and I see how you're trying to go ahead and, the SEC is dominating the ACC, even though, here's the deal, the shit was rigged. It was rigged. It's not up for discussion. It's not up for debate. Now, you can go over there and get offended. You can go ahead and, post your feelings, your comments in the description of this, in the comment section of my video, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever the hell you see it at. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You're just, absolutely 110% wrong. And Georgia isn't the best team. Georgia wasn't the best team. Georgia wouldn't beat Alabama even if they played them again, because Georgia graduated 25 fucking players between the year 2022 and 2023. Those two NCAA championships, those back-to-back NCAA champions that played for the University of Georgia are playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, or they're playing for the Green Bay Packers. I think some of them may be playing in Jacksonville. Not entirely sure, but I heard that rumor for the most part. Alabama graduated 17 players at the same time. So the sheer fact is, this is why you get, these quarterbacks coming in the NFL that are not ready to play. Day one starters that you always draft from Alabama, from Georgia, is because there's no real resistance. Whenever we go back and look at the top 10 this year, you had number 1 Georgia, number 2 Michigan, which is a Big Ten team, which they're also pushing right now. Number 3 Ohio State, which is a Big Ten team. Number 4 Alabama. Number 5 LSU, and some of these teams did not belong in those positions at all. Definitely Michigan should have started off at number 1 anyways. It should have been Michigan. They had a lot more players returning than Georgia. There was no fucking reason that Georgia, with the 112th ranked strength of schedule overall, because everybody's like, well, they had to play in the SEC, and the SEC is the best conference. They were not playing the best competition in the SEC this year. All right. They what, Missouri, the one that lost to Wake Forest. I think Missouri was 6-7 last year or something like that. Are you going to sit there and say that Ole Miss was really strong competition? They lost to Texas Tech in their bowl game last year. They were 8-4, and you played an 8-4. You played an 8-4 Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, the ACC had a winning record during the regular season over the SEC. But now, when we get to the bowl season, now you've already painted yourself in this corner because you've already made the deals. You made the deals. Disney made the deals with the SEC to go ahead and put in the SEC and the Big Ten, because guess what? Disney's getting woke and going broke. So they're going to end up screwing up another product, which is sports in general, with the ESPN shit. So they're going to have fucking what's that? The other dude, Kirby Herbstreit or whatever the fuck his name is, come out there and say, well, you got to put Alabama, and then they're going to show that. But at the end of the day, you're losing the Nebraska fans, you're losing the Miami fans, you're losing the USC fans, and the other fan bases out there that essentially made that product what it is today, where Disney was interested in buying it. And you're appeasing the smallest fan base out there, one of the smallest fan bases out there in Alabama, which I know that a lot of the fans right now that are cheering for Alabama are probably bandwagon fans. You've probably got a few loyalists out there, but the population of Alabama as a fucking state isn't even close to the Metroplex. All right, there's more people living in Dallas Fort Worth right now than there's living in the entire state of fucking Alabama. So, whenever they say they're doing it for the ratings, that's absolutely fucking bullshit. Whenever they say, oh, well, we don't want another TCU. TCU won their bowl game against Michigan. So, the shit looks fake. It looks staged. There's no way that TCU was a 65-point, worse than Georgia. Do you understand? So, if I already know that they have the balls enough to set up the games that bad and set it up that one-sided, and to go ahead and tell the fan base, fuck you, I don't care if your team wins out for the whole season. We're just going to go ahead and put in the team that we want to put in. And the reason why, we'll go ahead and give you a whole bunch of placebos, a whole bunch of bullshit reasons, and we'll put in who the fuck we want to. And if you still don't sit there and say nothing, if you're sitting there on the sideline, then don't expect me to respect your trophy. The WWE championship right now probably has more prestige than that college football championship. That's why, it's kind of like, even if Texas wins it right now, that's my team, but I'm probably going to jump off the bandwagon because I don't like the SEC. I don't like the politics for the SEC. So why would I go ahead and go for this team if they're playing in the SEC? That doesn't make any fucking sense. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to jump off. I'm going to jump on board on a Big 12 team because, at the end of the day, I'm going to stay loyal to my region and my conference. If you want to go to the SEC, if you want to go ahead and, sell out, then by all means, go right ahead. But that doesn't mean that, you're going to keep all these fans with you. I'll go for Baylor. How does that sound? And they may not be competitive, but at the end of the day, I can go ahead, support the team that supports us here in this region, and I ain't got to worry about ESPN and their cherry picked, champions that they're going to. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous, but they'll go ahead and put money down on these games and saying, oh, I'm going to go ahead and take Georgia, or I'm going to go ahead and take Florida State. Motherfucker, they're going to rig the fucking game for Georgia. They're going to rig the game for Georgia. They're going to rig the game. That's why Michigan was sitting there like, oh, fuck. Because they know that now they're going to have to rig the game for Alabama because they have to justify Alabama getting in there. So if Alabama ends up losing to Michigan, I'll just make up a score. Let's say that Michigan beats them 42-14. All right. And then Florida State at the same time, Florida State ends up blowing out Georgia 56-10. Just it's a hypothetical. Their defense is on fire. Their defense scores them 28 points. Their backup quarterback comes back and he ends up scoring them, another 28 points, and they end up winning 56-10, right? Then, all of a sudden everybody's going to be sitting there saying, well, this is not fucking legitimate. This shit looks fake. We could have had Florida State play Michigan with that defense, and it would have been a much more competitive game, and people would get outraged over this. Why do we even have these polls? If you're not going to use those polls right, why do we even have a ranking system? Why are we allowing these people to arbitrarily pick who's going to, be and compete for these things? So this is what makes it just makes people not want to watch the product anymore. And like I said, I know it's not only me, it's other people too, that are from other regions that want to see their teams being, and that's the way it should be. That's the way college football is supposed to work. A class graduates, you get in the new classes. It takes them a few years to go ahead, congeal and start to learn each other and be able to function as a fully team. So it may take 2 or 3 years for them to get to that level, but not in college football. Every year it's handed to the SEC, it's handed to Alabama, it's handed to Georgia, and the other ones got to fight for scraps. So it's a revolving door of, it's always the Big Ten and it's always the SEC, and it's a revolving door between the ACC, the Big 12, and for a while there it was the ACC and the Big, but it's a revolving door for everybody else for those other 3 spots. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's only 2 spots because sometimes the SEC will get in 2 teams. So you can't tell me that the shit isn't rigged, and you can't tell me that the fucking championships that the SEC has won over the past, I'd say, decade, maybe, last year. I'll probably say since Alabama played Georgia in the fucking for the national championship, and Alabama beat Georgia like 21-0, whenever it should have been Oklahoma State. I would probably say that the shit's been set up since then. It's probably been rigged for the SEC ever since then. And to be fair, the SEC was probably the best conference at that point in fucking time, but you still should have had Oklahoma State play for that title, not LSU. Or it shouldn't have even been LSU. It should have not Alabama. Alabama shouldn't have even been in the game. It should have been Oklahoma State versus LSU for that title. I don't give a shit what anybody says. You could sit there, but I mean, like I said, you can go ahead and say, oh, no, it's legitimate. And, all of us, that doesn't mean I have to respect it. And then, at the same time, I would go ahead and say, hey, look, if you feel the same way, come out and say that you feel the same way. Don't go along with this bullshit because some tacky ass ESPN analyst says, well, they're just the four best teams there is. And you better, no, you don't, that's not how it works. And I don't have to respect your opinion. And until you go ahead and start considering everybody else's opinion who has a problem with this. So you cannot be a college football fan and be an SEC fan. That's the way I see it. That's why I'm not going to be going for Texas after this year. When Texas goes to the SEC, that's it. So I kind of hope Texas does win, but they're not going to win. Alabama's going to win the championship. It's going to be Alabama and Washington, and they're not going to have Texas play in the national championship in their home state and then give it to Alabama. Because boy, oh boy, would that cause some, heat here in Texas. You know what I'm saying? And, it would be a joke. It would be an absolute joke if Alabama won it. But, go ahead and let them win it. I don't honestly give a shit anymore. Let Nick Saban retire. But that doesn't mean that I got to respect the trophy. So, yeah, I kind of wanted to do this one before tomorrow. That's why I went ahead and live streamed it. Was about to go ahead and step out, and I'm like, shit, I need to go ahead and get this done because Florida State and Georgia is tomorrow. I am pulling for Florida State to go ahead and upset Georgia. I would like for them to win by at least 3 touchdowns. Make a statement. You fucking Florida motherfuckers out there, don't listen to the ESPNs. Go out there and destroy Georgia. And I guarantee you, anybody who's a real college football fan will go ahead and say, you know what? It doesn't matter. Florida State deserves a split of that title. And, these columnists and these anchors for ESPN that are trying to sit there and reel them back in that were talking heavy shit before, that were saying that, Florida State got screwed, just to go back and say, well, don't do a split of the title. No, absolutely do a fucking split of the title. I'm not going to sit there and pretend like this is legitimate whenever you're not going to sit there and take everybody seriously as a fan. You're questioning my intelligence whenever you go ahead and say, you know what? Alabama's just a better team because I say so. I don't respect it at all. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think anybody else should neither. If you play your games, you win your conference, you're a Power 5 conference, you're promised designated one of those spots, well, then absolutely you deserve to play for that spot. And it doesn't matter how much you like Alabama, how much you think Alabama's awesome is. They didn't win against Texas. And the sure fact is Texas would have gotten into that spot, and you couldn't have put Alabama in over Texas because of the head-to-head win. And you knew it. So you had to go ahead and screw Florida State. You were going to screw somebody. You already knew it. And like I said, it would have been an absolute joke. Yeah, it's just an absolute joke that Alabama's playing, and that Florida State's not getting to play in this game. It's not, and so I hope whoever wins the national championship should have to play Florida State at the beginning of next season. I don't give a fuck if your schedules are already set. If Alabama wins that national championship, the first game that they should play should be Florida State next season. First game. And then let's see who the real national champion is. And then let's see how, you people go ahead and keep your credibility over there at ESPN. Let's see how many fans are going to really invest in this shit. But, it's not going to happen. Georgia's going to end up beating Florida State because you can't have an undefeated team sit there at 13-0 and then, them being a fucking, a second-tier champion with your national champion Alabama being 13-1 and winning the national championship. They're not going to do that stuff. So why would I watch the game if, like I said, if I already know that the shit's staged, if I already know that it's rigged, if I already know that Texas is going to lose to Washington that Monday, if I already know that Alabama is going to beat Michigan, and if I already know that Georgia is going to beat Florida State, well, then why would I watch any of these games? I already know how they're going to turn out. And, I did a prediction video a few years ago where I pretty much called all these games, down to the T and why. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I just wanted to come out here for posterity purposes, have this video up for whenever these games go ahead, whenever they play these games, whenever these big time games come up and they're being played, then this video is going to be up here so you can't go back and say, oh, you didn't know who was going to win these games. You can't tell the future because this isn't like wrestling. It's not scripted. And that's what I'm going to hear. I hear it every year, and I'm just a conspiracy theorist. It is whatever it is what it is. You can say whatever the hell you want to, but you just can't make these videos go away. So, anyways, you people tell me what you think. You like, sub, do the shit YouTube tells me to do to get over. And for now, I'm out.